Welcome to the 1 o'clock news, the headlines this lunchtime. The row over the aquatic centre in Abbottstown erupts again in the Dáil. Nurses meet to vote on proposals aimed at ending work to rule in hospital casualty units. And on Daffodil Day, cancer patients say they're not getting enough information on treatment. The row over the aquatic centre in Abbottstown erupted again in the Dáil this morning, with the Taoiseach outlining the concerns she had about it since last summer. And she said the government had agreed then that the roles of chairman and chief executive of Campus Stadium Ireland, held by Paddy Teahan, should be separated.
The Fine Gael leader Michael Noonan demanded that the Attorney-General's report on this contract should at least be given to members of the Public Accounts Committee, who will question Mr Teahan this afternoon.
This is beginning to look like a scandal, Taoiseach. It's beginning to smell like a scandal. And the longer the Taoiseach tries to keep the lid on it and tries to maintain a situation where the House is not fully informed, the more the public will worry.
The Taoiseach detailed what had worried her on a contract involving huge sums of public money.
My concerns in relation to this matter relate to the fact that appropriate processes and procedures were not in place for the expenditure of huge sums of public money. This was a 30-year contract awarded to a company that had no trading record, which was a requirement. And when the government made decisions on this matter, it did not have the fullest information, and the government is entitled. The government is entitled to the fullest information, and we did not have that. And the draft legislation was circulated last summer. In the observations that I would have made in my capacity as Minister for Enterprise, Trade and Employment, I was anxious that the role of Chairman and Chief Executive would be separate, and that was agreed by the government. That was agreed by the government last summer.
And she said the report of the Attorney-General on the issue couldn't be published until tomorrow, as those named in it had to be allowed comment on it first. Michael Conway, RTÉ News.
With more on this, our chief news correspondent Charlie Bird joins us now. Charlie, as we heard there, Paddy Teahan is going to make a statement to the Public Accounts Committee this afternoon, but he's already said he won't resign. So could one presume that whatever he says this afternoon isn't going to fully clear up the situation?
No, I don't think it's going to clear up the situation, but he will make a robust defence of his position. He's not only going to be asked about the aquatic centre, he's going to be asked about the Bertie Bowl and the High Point Rendell report into that aspect of the whole affair, which was also critical of the management. They didn't have enough experience. He's going to be asked in detail about that. But in the end, much of the focus this afternoon will be about the aquatic centre and the awarding of the contract to the dormant shelf company in Britain. He's going to make, I'm told, a 25-minute speech, and they will answer all questions put to him by the members of the committee. But John, in the end, his future will not depend on what happens at the Public Accounts Committee, but will depend on what happens between the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach, and in the end, the Cabinet.
Now, well, it's clear from what we heard in the Dáil this morning, Charlie, that the Taoiseach definitely isn't happy about this situation. So what action do you expect the Taoiseach, the Taoiseach and the Cabinet to take?
Well, I think the next thing that will happen is we will see the publication of the Attorney-General's report. It's perhaps, I think, 40 pages long with some legal documentation appended to it at the end. When that's published tomorrow, sources are telling me that it will tell another side of this story. Once it's published, once it's in the public domain, other people will be able to make up their own minds about it. But I still believe that there are growing pressures on Paddy Teahan to step down. And it's clear, we know the two divisions. There's going to be Chief Executive is going to be hived off, and then there's going to be a chairman. The question is, will Paddy Teahan be reappointed, not sacked, but will he be reappointed as the chairman of the Campus and Stadium Ireland project? And that's the big question.
Thank you very much indeed, Charlie Byrne. Officials of the nurses' unions have been meeting representatives from each hospital to hear their response to proposals on the running of accident and emergency units. The proposals were drawn up by union leaders and health managers at the Labour Relations Commission early yesterday morning. If the plans are accepted, the week-old work to rule by casualty nurses will be suspended. We're joined now by our industry and employment correspondent Ingrid Miley. Ingrid, both the INO and SIPTU have recommended acceptance of the proposals, but the nurses are still teasing out the implications of the deal.
Yes, they are, John, and I think the officials of both unions, who are meeting separately with their members, are not taking anything for granted. There's an awful lot of fine detail in that document, which when we would read it would not mean that much, but for those on the ground would mean a lot. So there will be significant discussion. I know the INO have set aside from 12 until 4 for their meeting because they reckon that they want to give everybody a chance to tease out the full implications, but that could change. It could run longer, it could be shorter, but they will be teasing out serious issues.
Ingrid, an interesting comment from the Irish Nurses Organisation within the last half hour. They're saying, Liam Doran of the INO is saying that the union reserves the right to take further industrial action if conditions deteriorate once again.
Yes, indeed. He said that as he arrived at the hotel where the INO are meeting. He said that if conditions were to deteriorate to the situation that drove them into industrial action in the first place, that they would be able to do that. And he also said that they wouldn't require another ballot to do that, that they would consider that they have a mandate to do that as things stand, without going through a from the start industrial process. So they are, presumably that is something that they will be bearing in mind when they look not just to the question of what's in today's document, but more importantly to the question of implementation. Because even yesterday morning, after this was brokered by the Labour Relations Commission, the nursing officials, Liam Doran and Oliver McDonough, were very, very keen to stress that the key to this is implementation. That's what they want to see. There's a 4-week window of opportunity at the moment.
Finally, very briefly, will the nurses accept this deal?
As I said, the nursing unions are not taking it for granted. There are positive indications. I've spoken to some delegates. They see some good in it. But as I said, the devil will be in the detail, as they're discussing at the moment. OK, thank you very much indeed for that update, Ingrid Miley. US President George Bush says he still plans to visit Peru this weekend, despite a bombing near the US Embassy in the capital, Lima, in which 9 people died. It's the worst terrorist attack on Peruvian soil in 10 years. No one has yet claimed responsibility for the attack.
The blast took place outside a busy shopping centre shortly before 11 o'clock local time. It's close to the American Embassy in a residential area of the capital. Hundreds of people were in the area at the time. After the explosion, bodies, some of them badly mutilated, could be seen scattered amid the broken glass and concrete. 2 of the dead were policemen. At least 30 were injured. There were no reports of any Americans being hurt. A bank and a hotel were left badly damaged, but the embassy escaped unscathed. Ironically, the embassy had moved from the city centre just a few years ago to protect it against terrorist attacks. It's thought the blast may be aimed at disrupting the visit of US President George Bush, who's due to arrive on Saturday. He's due to meet the President, Alejandro Toledo, along with the leaders of Colombia, Bolivia and Ecuador. The President, who's in Mexico for a UN summit, condemned the attack and said every protection would be given to Mr. Bush. Authorities had already tightened security ahead of his trip, with some 7,000 extra police being deployed to the capital. New measures have now been added, including the closure of Lima's centre and a ban on flights over the city. It's not yet sure who planted the device, though suspicion is falling on the leftist Shining Path militant group. Although the group has been dormant for nearly a decade, it's thought they may be regrouping. Last year, Peruvian authorities said they'd foiled an attack by them on the embassy. John O'Driscoll, RTÉ News.
More than 4 months since the Taliban were ousted, Afghanistan is celebrating the Persian New Year for the first time in 6 years. The ceremony, known as Nowruz, celebrates the harvest and rebirth and is observed across Central Asia and in Iran.
This year, it really was a new life. After the forced austerity of the Taliban, Afghans took to the streets to celebrate with enthusiasm. These traditionally boisterous celebrations were banned under the Taliban, whose only concession to the festival was time off for extra prayer. Afghanistan's interim Prime Minister, Hamid Karzai, personally oversaw the celebrations in Mazar-e-Sharif, the country's main northern city and the first to fall to the Northern Alliance. As with similar celebrations throughout the country, a flag inscribed with a verse from the Quran was raised in the city's mosque. Women, many of them still wearing their blue burqas, rushed forward to kiss the flag, a traditional guarantee of good luck for the year ahead. Husbands bought their wives flowers, while couples took the opportunity to have a picnic and watch their children playing on fairground rides, freshly oiled after 6 years' rust. And in a city where an uneasy peace exists between 3 rival warlords, the Prime Minister did his own political capital no harm by throwing money to the crowds from his motorcade. In Kabul, there was another sign of changing times. In a football stadium, which was the scene of many executions under the Taliban, a female Afghan soldier parachuted to earth in a scene unthinkable under the previous regime. The crowd, starved for so long of any excitement, didn't seem to mind that she landed slightly off target in some nearby trees. Fergal Ryan, RTÉ News.
A study on behalf of the Irish Cancer Society has revealed a low awareness of the symptoms of bowel cancer, which is the second biggest cancer killer in Ireland. The disease can be treated successfully if detected early. And information on the treatment and incidence of cancer in this country isn't sophisticated enough to enable patients to know they are getting the treatment they need. That's according to the government's National Cancer Registry.
The Irish Cancer Society had the pretty nurses, the celebrities and the sunshine all at the same time to help them launch Daffodil Day in the Botanic Gardens. The Society hopes to raise €2.25 million, which will fund free countrywide nursing services for people with cancer. The launch coincided with the release of preliminary results from a study of 1,500 adults, which showed that only 4 in 10 were able to name even one symptom of the common disease, bowel cancer. 925 people die every year from this cancer, and increased awareness of the symptoms is needed.
Family history is very important, and bleeding of any kind. Bleeding and altered bowel habit will be the two ones to be aware of.
Meanwhile, the Irish Cancer Registry has called for the collection of more sophisticated information on cancer treatment and outcomes.
We need to now collect data, more broadly based data, treatment data. We need to link our data into different data sources. For example, we don't really understand the relationship between poverty and low socioeconomic status and cancer, and we need to start to understand that.
Tomorrow is Daffodil Day, when everyone, old and young, will be asked to do their bit. Aileen O'Mara, RTÉ News, Glasnevin.
A legal challenge which could change the way in which abortion services are provided in the North has begun at the Belfast High Court, and the Family Planning Association wants the court to order the North's Health Department to publish specific guidelines on abortion. Pro-life groups who are opposing the application claim the move will make abortion much more easily available.
At present, abortion in the North is permitted in certain restricted circumstances if, for example, doctors consider the mother's life is in danger or believe she could be emotionally or physically affected by giving birth. The Family Planning Association says the purpose of their legal challenge is not to change or liberalise the abortion laws in the North, but simply to clarify the legal situation in which terminations may be carried out. The FPA wants the court to order the Department of Health in the North to publish guidelines on what abortion services are available and under what circumstances they can be used. Their lawyer, the leading English advocate Lord Leicester, said they were not seeking to compel doctors to act contrary to their consciences. He argued that publishing specific guidelines would give doctors a level of comfort and legal protection and would serve to dispel the view that abortion was illegal. Anti-abortion groups, though, believe the court challenge is merely a thinly disguised attempt by the FPA to make abortion much more widely and easily available to women in the North. The pro-life groups have launched a major advertising campaign and have been picketing the FPA's Belfast offices in protest. They have also engaged senior counsel to argue their case against publishing abortion guidelines. The importance of this case is exemplified by the presence in court of more than a dozen senior counsel. Tomorrow, submissions will be made on behalf of 4 separate anti-abortion groups and by lawyers representing the Northern Catholic bishops. Judgment is likely to be reserved and may not come until the autumn. Brendan Wright, RTÉ News at the Belfast High Court.
The government stands to gain upwards of €2 million from the early application of this year's VAT increase on telephone bills. VAT increased by 1% from March the 1st, but phone customers have been charged based on calls made before this date.
To 1% increase in VAT in the last budget. It was to take place on March 1st. But phone users have received an early call on VAT. Because of the staggered billing systems that phone companies use, customers who are billed this month will be charged VAT at 21%, despite some of their calls having been made in the period up to February 28th, when VAT was 20%. The net effect will push up a €100 phone bill by €1. All fixed and mobile phone companies have applied the new VAT rate this way, which they believe is consistent with VAT law, which applies VAT on the date a bill is sent out. They point out that when VAT was decreased last year, customer bills were cut for calls made in the previous period. The Revenue Commissioners, who it's estimated could gain by up to €1 million, say they informed all phone companies only to apply the increased VAT on calls made from March 1st. They advised that disgruntled customers should take the matter up with their phone companies. But the phone companies say it's not their money, it's a matter for revenue. The telecommunications regulator says it's a matter between the phone companies and revenue. The Director of Consumer Affairs says it's a matter exclusively for the revenue. Amid this ring of confusion, it's the customer, it seems, who will be left paying the bill. Robert Short, RTÉ News.
Sport now. St Patrick's Athletic will respond to the FAI about the late registration of Mobazi Livingston later today. It's a situation that could see the Inchicore club docked 15 points. Elsewhere on the Gaelic Games front, several teams have been named ahead of a busy weekend of league action.
The Kingdom's injury jinx appears to be receding. Seamus Moynihan has recovered from a hamstring strain to figure in the Kingdom's first 15 for the game against Armagh. Should Paddy O'Shea's side lose in Tralee, Kerry are likely to miss out on top-flight league football for one more season. Not such good news in Roscommon, where manager John Tobin has effectively ruled out one of his most influential forwards for the championship opener, if not longer. Frankie Dolan's shoulder injury has not healed sufficiently in recent weeks, so much so the Connacht champions expect him to be absent from their game against Galway on May 19th. And a sign perhaps of things to come in Cork, where Diarmuid O'Sullivan will line out for the county's hurlers against Offaly. So football manager Larry Tompkins will have to plan without him for the game against Donegal. Cork need to win to avoid possible relegation. Eamon Horan, RTÉ News.
To financial news now. On the Dublin stock market, the main movers: AIB down 24, Bank of Ireland up 2, CRH up 5, Jury's Doyle up 20 and Power Leisure down 11. The ISEC index of Irish shares is down 19. In London, the FTSE 100 is up 9. On the currency markets, the euro is trading at 62 pence sterling and 88 US cents. Returning now to the main news today, the row over the aquatic centre at Abbottstown. In the Dáil this morning, the Taoiseach outlined the concerns she had about it since last summer. A short while ago, the Taoiseach talked to our political correspondent David McCullough.
Well, what we discussed yesterday, the report at the Cabinet meeting when we received it, it's a voluminous report with enormous amount of schedules. I quite frankly have just read about it, a quarter of it at this stage, so I hope over the weekend to get to the end of it. But we decided that the members of the executive and others who in any way had comments made about them would be given this report, which Jim McDade did last night, and that they would endeavour to send back their replies by tomorrow. So I think at that stage we would have to integrate that into the report.
But presumably at this stage Paddy Teahan's position is under some considerable doubt?
Well, I think it's under the rules of natural justice, which I think we all would have to follow. Anyone who has comments made about them has the obligation, not an obligation, but the right to put their side of the story, and that's what we have to do. So I don't think we should assume anything until that's allowed to be done.
And while Mr.
The Taoiseach talking there to our political correspondent David McCullough. Well, that's the news so far this Thursday. Seamus will be here with Keenly into Noach after the weather. For now, from me and all the team, a very good afternoon to you.
Hello and good afternoon. Well, it is a beautifully mild day across the country. Most of us enjoying some pleasant spring sunshine during this morning. Indeed, the satellite picture confirming those clear skies, but we can see some cloud brewing up off to the west now, and that will bring some showers or some spots of rain during the course of the rest of today. But for the afternoon, well, still some good sunshine to come, particularly in the east of the country, but there are those showers showing up in the west, and there may be some thundery bursts in there at times. Later on this afternoon and evening, we will see those showers transfer further east. finished, but still some good dry periods to come also, as temperatures this afternoon reach between 12 and 14 degrees Celsius, so feeling quite mild in those moderate to fresh southwesterly breezes. Now, as we go through tonight, temperatures not falling any lower than between 6 and 9 degrees Celsius though, so there really shouldn't be a frost. And in terms of weather, well, it will be quite dry early in the night, but then later we will see some drizzly rain arrive into the west, and that will be towards morning. Now, looking at the chart for tomorrow, we can see Ireland under the influence of a mild southerly airflow with this warm front across the country, and that will bring some rain as we go through tomorrow. So generally quite a cloudy day with just some bright spells. The best of those will be in the east, and where we do see those bright spells, temperatures climbing to about 15 or 16 degrees Celsius, but it will be quite breezy. Now, a quick preview of the weekend, and Saturday's set to be quite a mild day with temperatures rising to about 15 or 16 degrees Celsius again, though we will see some spots of rain in places. Sunday should be a drier day with just the odd coastal shower, but feeling cooler and fresher despite the sunshine. That's it from me for the moment. The next bulletin here on RTÉ One is at 3:20, but for now, good afternoon.
Haran scéal bhronna chunra an únaid snámha náisiúnta chomhlacht neamhaigh níomhach tuile conspóide sa dálinneamh. Agus í freagart ceistena ó cheannarí ina Gael agus an Locht Oibre dúirt tánaiste méraí Harnaí náirta go gacholalas gan réaltas faoin gunra. Dúirt sí gur sí imníoch faoin scéal an saoirse caite. Dúirt sí nar lean Campus Stadium Ireland na cleachtais chuí. Túra Caherlach agus príomhaimeanach Campus Stadium Ireland Paddy Teahin ráitis faoin scéal go chaisteanna guntas Paiblí tróna. Bhótála altraoiní stearnaíneamh bhfoltaí a chuireach deire lena gníomhaíoch cheanslúach an éanaid éigeandála ospidéal fud na tíre. Tá na haltraí gobair go réalach le háir de hairint an róflódús na héanaid éigeandála. Cuirfar na Maltaí réití tháinig ceart chumann na naltraí agus fóstóirí na seirbhísí sláinte orthu faoi bhráid mhaol go siptú agus chumann na naltraí. Mar íomhnaíonar agus gortaíomh tríocha duine eile nuair a phléas gábhhuama an aice le hambasáid Mheiriceá a Lima príomhchathair Ferú. Leagann na buamaí in Gluisteáin agus phléas guiad a gentar sipadóireachta. Tá uachtar na Stát Aontaithe George W. Bush le cuairteoirtear an tír faoi cheann trí lá. Ní fis go fóil cébhí freagracha san ionsaí ach meastar gur an na buamálathe ag ggéar choréis go chuairt an uachtaráin Bush. Dúirt an Commissioner David Byrne le fórum na Cheorapam le clíormaidin nach rá forálacha be a gunra níos a chuir a chais go foldasaí neodrochta na tíre. Bheabhra se go meach dearbhú a dacha le foldasaí neodrochta an nar i cóirlinn na Cheorapa le chéile míon bheitheh. Dáte sé go ginteach an dearbhú seo nach meach dulgas a réon Wallstart, páirteach lecha sa bhearbhehel faoi éirim. Agus sin é deireann an nóta go fóil be an nuacht an léigean roiib ag fichanúmata se cúig go dtí sin lá maithagaí.
Poor old Seb thinks he's better off breaking up with Kirsty and home and away. Next on One.